Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. I hope you're all doing absolutely excellent, and if you're a fan of Bethesda, I mean, you should be doing absolutely excellent. It's been raining leaks and rumors for the Oblivion remake, and now we got Fallout leaks and rumors to talk about. Not only are we getting into Fallout 3 Remastered, which based on what we saw yesterday from the Oblivion remaster, is likely more of a remake, but also we're going to be talking about Fallout Season 2, where a bunch of set photos have leaked, and it's going to give us a lot to speculate on. But indeed, the first part of this conversation is actually building off of yesterday's gameplay screenshot leak for the Oblivion remake. It's going to give us a lot to talk about on what the Fallout 3 remaster can end up looking like, what changes I hope to see, but also when are we getting this thing, which is the most concrete piece of information we have after officially seeing the Oblivion remake. So ladies and gentlemen, a lot to talk about in the world of Fallout today, no doubt. Next week will be all Elder Scrolls constantly, so welcome and welcome all. If you're a Fallout fan, I mean, you know how absolutely sickening I am with this franchise. Consider subscribing. Let's start off with the smaller part of the conversation, Fallout 3 Remaster. So, first question is, when's it arriving? Well, the FTC leak that we got a few years ago is more legitimate than ever, because on there we did see the Oblivion Remaster, and based on the leak we saw on Virtuosa's website yesterday, it is indeed being called Oblivion Remastered, and it is a real project. Now, on that same FTC document, 2 years after the Oblivion Remaster, was Fallout 3 Remastered. And one of the key leakers behind Oblivion Remake, or Remaster, what the hell ever you want to call it, I don't know, man. It does not look like a remaster to me, so I feel like I gotta keep calling it Remake. But nonetheless, one of the key leakers behind Oblivion was Nate the Hate, who gave us the release window. It was corroborated by VGC. He's been on top of it all, and he's also talked about what's next for maybe Virtuos, but Bethesda certainly when it comes to the remakes and remasters, and that is Fallout 3. When asked just yesterday if it's still happening, he says it's planned, but won't be for a while. And someone else asked him, have you heard anything regarding the Fallout 3 remaster? And he says, it'll be a while before we see it. Now, in the terms of narrowing it down, not only do we see in the FTC document that it's about 2 years after the Oblivion remake / remaster, but also Nate the Hate is saying a similar thing as early as April 1st, that Oblivion is coming first, which would be this year. It's getting shadow dropped as soon as next week, and that Fallout is maybe in another 2 to 3 years. Now, obviously, projects change, plans change. If we go back to the Project Alter leak from Reddit, we know that this was kind of a project that as they were working through it, it was described as they weren't sure how much into the remake category they were going to go into. Now looking at the visuals, before I even see the gameplay, how dialogue works, facial animations, that sort of thing, and of course combat, it feels like they've gone more into the remake territory. Now, we don't know if that's added a lot to their development timeline, but based on that post, they already said it would be, late 2024 or early 2025. Again, depending on what direction they went in. So Fallout 3, if he's using the terminology of planned, this is on the docket, I imagine this is going to be Virtuosa's next project. They've kind of found a home in these sort of Shadow of the Colossus style remakes. We already know they're doing Metal Gear Solid 3 later this year, and that's a pretty much faithful remake of that game. What we're seeing with Oblivion does seem to change things up a lot more, at least on a visual front, compared to what MGS is doing. But also when we looked at that gameplay leak of how blocking works, how stamina works, how archery works, the UI changes, it looks like it's going to be a more substantial change / remake compared to the work they're doing with MGS3. So with all of that in mind, and you go to Fallout 3, obviously first and foremost is it's going to be really interesting to see what that game looks like with modernized graphics. It was a game that when I first played it, many of you know this, but I hated Fallout 3, which is hilarious to think about now. It's a top 3 game of all time for me, but I hated Fallout 3 the first time I played it. I thought it was ugly, I didn't get it, thought it was boring, put it down. Friend in middle school convinced me to try it again, bought the Game of the Year edition, and the rest is obviously history. Just fell in love from there. But Fallout 3 is a very brown video game, and I'm curious if they go the opposite way, because one thing we saw in the Oblivion remake is they kind of lowered the saturation in certain screenshots, potentially. Some have argued, and I think it's a fair argument, that it's the time of day that the screenshot was taken in, but there's definitely a lesser amount of color in exchange for more foliage, more rocks, more environmental clutter, that sort of thing. But no denying that they kind of grounded a little bit of Oblivion's fantasy feel into a more realism-driven game. Again, just on the visual front based on what little screenshots we've seen. With Fallout 3, I'm curious if they go the opposite way. We've seen Bethesda Game Studios and their creators from the Creation Club I covered it in a whole video where they did the whole GNR radio plaza for Fallout 3 in Fallout 4. And it was strange to see Fallout 3 with like such vibrancy. And I feel like that's the direction that Fallout 3 as a remake would be taken in, is it would be a lot more vibrant. Like the skies would be a lot less green. I think the buildings and how they just appear would be a lot more diverse. Fallout 3 is a very unique art style, and I'm a little conflicted on how, if they clean it up, that would feel, because so much of my favorite thing about that game is its atmosphere. But no doubt by next week, when we play Oblivion Remake, it's going to inform us a lot on how far Bethesda might go with a Fallout 3 remake. So no doubt we will circle back around to this topic. But when you look at the FTC leak, what Nate the Hate is saying, it seems like this is up next, and it'll get on the train now. We're going to be talking about this for years and years. And when that starts to ramp up, if you guys thought I was bad with Oblivion, look, Oblivion was my first true BGS experience, and some people were complaining how much I was talking about that. Do you get it when I get a remake of like my favorite game of all time? If you thought I was bad with Oblivion, and that's like a top, I'd say 15 game for me, just you wait. Just you wait. It's gonna be awful for you. But now let's move on over to season 2 of Fallout, because for those of you who don't want anything spoiled, this is a pretty good time to click off the video. But for those of you who are cool about knowing what's maybe going on with Fallout season 2, who's gonna appear, great news for you if you're out there chanting Ave, true to Kaiser, because ladies and gentlemen, the Legion is back. As we can see here in this set photo, all of the Legion is there. We can also see this one here that someone sniped on what they described as their morning walk, which I would lose my mind. Like, how are you so casual about that? I would lose my mind. I'd be like, yo, that's the Legion. What's going on? We also got this shot here. It's the NCR, and that is the same exact outfit from New Vegas. So I look at that, and the first question you ask is, based on what we saw in season 1, like the NCR is in a pretty piss poor state, right? So is this a flashback? My guess is yes, because the key thing that I want you all to pay attention to as we go through a lot of these set photos is the cleanliness of the outfits, the cleanliness of the props. Now, obviously, editing can do its thing, post-production can do its thing. But when you look at the NCR here, like, that armor's clean, that armor's slick, very nice looking. Same thing even with the Legion. So as we've seen with prior set photo leaks for season 2 of Fallout, a lot of it has been, for example, the strip, but a lot of the props for the strip, especially as we're going to show you here in a moment here, are very clean. They even like did cars, like Corvega cars that were very clean as well. They're doing all this because they're going to flip back and forth between pre-war, or at least some sort of flashback sequence, and what's happening now. I mean, we know what happened to the New Vegas Strip based on the final credit scene for season 1. Obviously, we also saw that the NCR is very scattered. Now, something Todd Howard and a lot of the Fallout TV crew has been saying is that, you know, the NCR can be prominent in different areas. So it's also possible that the NCR is in a much more powerful state somewhere else and are on their way to insert themselves into the season 2 conflict. I could also see this, though, when you see the Legion and you see the NCR. This could definitely be a moment where it's kind of flashing back to the battle for Hoover Dam and implying who the victor may have been. I mean, they've been very clear they don't want to do that, but I just don't know how you tell this story in a very definitive, interesting way if you are just dancing around the ending of New Vegas. I'm still a believer, and, you know, I'm going to go in with high hopes for season 2 because season 1 knocked me on my ass, but I am going in with the level of like, I don't know how you do this without picking an ending and make it all feel good. It's a serious challenge that I think avoiding it, like, I would prefer they pick a canon ending personally, but nonetheless, we are going to see the Legion, and of course, we're going to see the NCR in season 2, but based on their garb and how many there are, I feel like it might be a flashback to maybe events happening during New Vegas. But we also got a lot of set photos, set decorations, Silver Rush gambling hall. There's my goat Walton Goggins there with his thumb up. That's the Vault Boy right there. We love to see that stuff. We get Robert House and the Lucky 38. You never know. I mean, look at all these beautiful, but yet again, clean set decorations. We see even slot machines here, more and more slot machines in the set decorating. I thought this one here was also really cool because it says See Lake Mead. Thought this was cool because you even see the B-29 flying in the photo there, which is a little nod to obviously the crashed B-29 that you would find at the bottom of Lake Mead if you go there in Fallout New Vegas. There's even promotion for the tops here: frolic, thrill, relax, enjoy, come and let loose and get crazy. So a lot of the standard stuff you'd expect, but again, pretty clean, because what we've seen from prior set leaks is that there's going to be a lot of pre-war strip sequences. Now, what was also interesting was people seeing props that reflect real world brands. Like Fallout has a lot of parallel brands that kind of represent in a comedic way, a dark comedic way, the things we see in our real lives. But you see TWA Departures. TWA is a real brand, the Trans World Airline, before it got absorbed into American Airlines based on what I was reading. And then here's a Ward Air Canada plane as a prop on set, and that is another real airline, or was. I personally don't fly in Canada often. I'm from the United States, you know what I mean? But ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people were looking at this like, why are real world brands in my Fallout? There was great speculation on the Reddit thread that I kind of agree with, which is just the idea that this will likely be changed in post-production. I wouldn't really worry too much here, but the idea is that there is an airport, and I think of the McCarran International Airport based on the slot machines we're seeing posted up here as well. A lot of people, like myself, immediately thought strip, but then I see those slot machines, the jackpot machines, and then I see an airline, and I think about what you see in the entryway to Camp McCarran, obviously the airport converted into NCR Camp. And now when you enter the building, there are slot machines. And again, it was formerly an airport. So found that one to be really interesting. There is also this travel services board here. The most interesting thing to me was here at the bottom where it says additional services. Reserve your spot in Vault 21 today. Poseidon Energy fuel ration plans. Travel smart, prepay for gasoline before the shortages hit. Atomic Tour promotions. Watch a real atomic blast from the comfort of the Atomic Lounge. And luxury moon vacations, offering early bookings for a future space resort. One thing that was also picked up on in some of the set shots was Vault 21 being called a hotel. Now, if you go to, say, like the Fallout Wiki, or you've played New Vegas recently, I've been chipping through, but I had to pause it because of some reviews, but I've been chipping through a replay of New Vegas. Vault 21 was originally a social experiment based around gambling, but before New Vegas, about like 8-ish years before New Vegas, Mr. House saw an opportunity to pretty much make it part of the economy of the strip, and that is when it was converted into a hotel. So there's a bit of potential light retconning there, which has some understandably Redditors on their guard a bit, so definitely something to be on the lookout for. Otherwise, some really nice window decorations here, just continuing on. Within the strip, we see some pre-war phones. Again, everything looking pretty clean here, where I feel like we're going to get a lot more in the terms of a pre-war showcase compared to what we got with Fallout Season 1. In Fallout Season 1, we already got a lot, but I think Season 2, it's even more imperative with, obviously, the reveals at the end of Season 1. In particular, again, you see Mr. House, we're seeing the strip, we have implications that Vault Tech may have been involved in launching the nukes and starting the war, like a lot of lore implications, right? And a lot of them are just housed in the pre-war. So I could see, again, as I predicted in our last Fallout speculation video, I could see a lot of this being the journey to the strip, and on the way to the strip, just a ton of flashbacks, which for me as a Fallout fan, like, I personally, I don't want to speak for everyone, I'm very excited about that because I want more pre-war. I feel like it's very unexplored in Fallout, frustratingly so. Like Fallout 4 was a missed opportunity in that regard because they had that pre-war segment and it was so brief. I know Bethesda said they had planned more content around that opening, but bugs the hell out of me, man. So I like that the show is addressing that. Again, very curious how the Legion as well as NCR play a factor in all of this, but lots of questions. Hopefully we're going to get answers soon. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on all of this down below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.